This is Madia-as Digdigan Buenaflor, extending an invitation to each and every one of you everywhere, as my way of commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. I will read and serialize my novel, The Blood of Three, starting on Tuesday, August 27, and continuing episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Follow the drama on my YouTube channel. May we forever exhale and inhale love and peace. I wanted to, but there was no need for it yet. I thought it was not the right time. I had to be sure where your sympathies are. And I know now that this is not with the Japanese. That doesn't mean that I am their enemy either, Mr. Miura clarified. I don't agree with this war, this killing. I know how much you value peace. I respect that. But to have peace, to restore what we had, we have to do something. By betraying my own brothers, the emotion welled in Mr. Miura's voice. No, Ernesto, I could never do that. Not against the Japanese, or the Filipinos, or the Americans. I understand. Please hear me out. You love peace. I do too. But we can't just sit down and watch. I don't sit down and just watch. I do my part, the best way I know how, the only way my conscience will allow me. I live by what I believe in. I live my life in peace. I do what counts most, especially the innocent children. In my own small way, I have done that and will continue doing as long as I can. I admire you for what you believe in. What I'm asking is not for you to fight or to use force. It is for your access to the garrison that I need. Just that. Your access to the garrison. Please, Ernesto, don't ask me to do anything I don't approve of. He was so emphatic, Ernesto was sure there was no way he would change his mind, but he had to try. Be reasonable, Mr. Miura. Ernesto's voice became emotional as well. You can just watch people die. If you can do something about it, do it, please. Ernesto, Mr. Miura stood. For the first time, the vein on his temple bulged. Don't ever think that loving peace is unreasonable. I love peace, yes, but I just don't watch the world go by. I just don't dream. I do it in my own peaceful way. I do not condone killing. I do not fight like you, guerrillas. Who likes to fight anyway? There was pain and bitterness in Ernesto's voice. We are forced to defend our country from the invaders. If the Japanese would kill in their desire to dominate, in their hunger for power, for expansion, then we Filipinos, we guerrillas, have all the rights, legitimate rights, and the sacred duty to fight, defend our land, and die to preserve what belongs to our people. I understand where you're coming from, Ernesto. Don't underestimate my capacity to understand the situation. My heart bleeds and I hurt very deeply because I find myself in a situation where whatever I do would hurt people. My family, my friends, my neighbors, our people, everyone. No one wins, and the children. Right now, what I can do is for the children. They need me. I have work to do for them. I am sorry I can't help you in whatever mission you have to do. If it is your life you're concerned, before Ernesto could finish, Mr. Miura stopped him. I am not afraid to die if it is for what I believe in. If I accede to your request and I am discovered, both Lota and Joyville and the civilians would be in danger as well. You have heard of how the Japanese retaliate. They take it against the civilians. Let me make this very clear. If my death would end the war, you don't have to ask me twice. But really, would you honestly answer me that it will? On the other hand, there would be retaliation, more killings. There's no end to this. My help will further fuel more hatred and accelerate drastic action on the part of the Japanese. It broke his heart to think of the consequences. I don't disagree with you, but do you know of any other way? Now that General MacArthur had landed in Leyte and the American forces gaining grounds, why can't you wait for them to liberate this town? It was obvious Mr. Miura was trying hard to convince Ernesto that patience may be the alternative. That's exactly why we have to act now before the American forces land in Luzon. The bastion with its powerful guns could annihilate the forces before they reach land if we don't neutralize it. This impending huge encounter is making the Japanese very nervous. You have seen what they have done to this town and its civilians. They've gone mad, and every hour of delay means loss of more lives. The impassioned words of Ernesto was thoroughly clouded with bitterness as he continued. I thought friends should help one another. That's why I came to you. We took you into our confidence. We treated you like a son, and we never doubted your motives. If your intention is to trade our affection for you with what you want me to do, if your sole purpose in getting in touch with us is to use me, you disappointed me, Ernesto. I had only admiration for you before this. I did not plan this thing, Mr. Miura. Please believe me. Ernesto wished he could cut open his heart and bare his soul for him to see. If you can only see how miserable this is making me, how difficult this had been for me to approach you for your help. But my duty to my country compelled me to do what is expected of me. We each have our own burden of responsibility. Mine is to my family. I've done everything in my power to spare my daughter the brunt of this war. So I repeat, don't ever make the mistake of seeing me again, especially my daughter, if it is for the same purpose. Mr. Miura turned away from Ernesto, looking far toward the hill. An uncomfortable silence followed. From where Ernesto sat, he could see Joybel and Lota coming home from their trip. Ernesto's heart pounded so fast as if racing to meet Joybel, and abruptly the meeting stopped. The sight of a young man, a Japanese, walking with them, whose company he seemed to enjoy, descended on Ernesto like a dark cloud. "You're back, Mr. Miura. I have to go." "I'm sorry, sir." Ernesto's heart was broken and he could not mend it. Mr. Miura nodded without turning to look at Ernesto, the disappointment still visible on his face. Ernesto left without bothering to look back. The visit with Mr. Miura was a disaster. His heart wept for the friendship he has just lost. Yet the knife that stabbed him and twisted and slashed into the very core of his dying heart was the looming loss of Joybel to that young Japanese. Mitzi silently walked beside Joybel, strumming a Japanese love song in his ukulele. It gratified him that Joybel and Lota looked pleased at his rendition. As soon as they reached home, Mitzi hesitated, but had to bid them goodbye. "Won't you stay a little longer?" It was Lota who invited Mitzi. "It's all right, ma'am. Thank you, but I'm needed at the clinic. Goodbye, Joybel." Mitzi smiled timidly, then threw a sly glance at Joybel, who was already on her way up the house. "See you," Joybel cheerfully waved at him. Mitzi walked away with an extra bounce. He was not touching ground. He was soaring so high he thought he was actually walking on clouds. The smiles on the faces of Joybel and Lota abruptly disappeared as soon as they got upstairs. "Why, Mahal?" Lota was concerned at the long-drawn face of Mr. Miura. "Don't you feel well?" She felt his forehead. "I'm fine, but you look tired." Before Mr. Miura could answer, Joybel saw the bunch of flowers on the table. She picked this up and excitedly inquired, "Are these flowers for me, Daddy?" Yes, Joybel." "Oh, how beautiful. I know where this came from." She smelled the red ginger torch flowers. "From Ernesto, right? Where is he, Daddy?" Joybel was beaming as he waited for her father to confirm her wish. But her father remained silent. "Daddy, where is Ernesto?" "Gone," he answered without looking at her. "But why? There was no way Ernesto would just leave without seeing her." "Never mind, I know where to find him." She turned to leave when the voice of her father stopped It came so sharp, it cut through her. No, Joybell, you stay. You are not to see Ernesto. A spear hit Joybell straight to her heart. For the very first time her father's wounded her, she was bleeding profusely. Joybell stood frozen in place, stunned in disbelief at what she heard. It was so unlike her father. Slowly, she turned toward him, searching for the father she knew, but he was not there. You don't want me to see Ernesto? Joybell echoed the line tentatively, but believing that the words actually came from her father, and uttered in the manner that it was delivered. Yes, Joybell. The answer came short and terse. From now on, avoid him. But Daddy, Ernesto is good to me. We are friends. What have we done to deserve this? Joybell fought back. Follow what I say, child. It is for your own good. The words came firm and final. How could you be so sure? What do you know about what is really and truly good for me? Instantly, she turned rebellious as she confronted her father, something she had never done before. Joybell, Lota was shocked at her daughter's behavior, but the latter turned a deaf ear to her. She's just a child, Lota. She's hurting and doesn't mean what she's saying. Mr. Miura was calm and unemotional. I'm no longer a child. I have feelings. I know what I'm doing. Joybell's emotion was now uncontrollable. I repeat, you are not to see Ernesto if you still value your mother and me. They were both authorities, and a hint of threat in his voice. Joybell stood transfixed, the words of her father ringing in her ears. Her eyelids grew heavy with tears. Unable to bear her agony any longer, she ran to her bedroom and slammed the door behind her. Lota watched helplessly. She could feel the hurt of her daughter and the sorrow of her husband. She knew her husband too well to understand that he would never do anything to hurt their daughter or anybody else without a very good reason. She could feel the turmoil in him. He was gasping for breath and he was drowning. Gently she placed her hands on her husband's shoulder as he stood behind him. But Mr. Miura seemed so far away, so distant, so remote. She wanted to talk to him, to find out what had transpired during the visit to Ernesto. But she felt she must not trespass into his boundary. Not yet. It had been her experience that to push someone when one was not ready would just be counterproductive. He found it wiser to give him the space to be alone with himself, with his thoughts, to think without the added pressure of an intrusion. So she left him alone and went straight to the kitchen to prepare their dinner. An hour passed and Joybell kept to herself. Lota had finished her cooking. Mr. Miura asked her to join him for a walk. She got the message and immediately accepted his invitation. She had a feeling he wanted to tell her something away from the presence of her daughter. Lota, Mr. Miura started, as soon as they were a little distance from their house. I have something to share with you. Lota stopped and looked at her husband. She could truly empathize with him for the agony that was torturing him. Is it about Ernesto? He nodded. Ernesto is a guerrilla officer. He is? Lota gasped. Did he tell you this? Yes, he came to ask for my help. What kind of help? To use me against the Japanese. It's my access to the garrison that he needed. And you refused him. Knowing her husband, Lota was certain he would never do such a thing. I told him my own reason. But we seem to belong to two different schools of thought. He sighed. I wish he could read what's written in my heart. Perhaps he did, but refused to accept it. He had his reason, and I can understand that. Lota kept silent. She did not know what else to say. Her husband loved peace and hated the brutality of war and what it did to the innocent people. But he was never a coward, this she knew. Your disagreement with Ernesto should not prevent him from seeing our daughter. Do you think I like this? I know it would break our daughter's heart. But if information about Ernesto's affiliation with the guerrillas would reach the Japanese, they would surely torture him to death. My God, And he's only 21. Lota was distraught. And our daughter might be involved too. Joy Bill should be spared this information. Now go ahead, Lota. Tell our daughter what she is supposed to know. I love them both, Joy Bill and Ernesto, more than they realize. Lota left her husband alone and hurried back home. She knocked on the door of her daughter's room, but there was no answer. Slowly she opened it. She found her daughter lying on her bed, her face buried against the pillow. Lota sat beside her, gently stroking her hair. Joybell, child, she whispered. Oh, Mommy, Mommy, Joybell sobbed as she turned and hugged her mother. Daddy doesn't love me anymore. He has changed. No, baby, he loves you more than ever. But he was angry at me. He was just upset, but not at you. Why doesn't he want me to see Ernesto? He hates him. No, Joybell, your daddy hates no one. But he told me to avoid Ernesto. Why? Because he doesn't like him to get hurt. You see, child, the Japanese are becoming stricter, especially the people of Ernesto's age. If they should mistake him for a gorilla, he could be killed, and that would devastate us. Your daddy loves you so much, and he wants Ernesto to live. I'm sorry, Mommy. I was rude to Daddy. You were hurting, child, but soon you would learn to listen and consider things before acting on impulse. Thank you, Mommy. You know how much I love Daddy. I'm so sorry. She embraced her mother tightly. I know. And he loves you very much. You'll know what to do, darling. She kissed her and left her to herself. Lota was preparing the table for dinner when her husband came home. He went straight to his rocking chair and gazed at the star-filled sky. From her room, Joybell emerged with a towel without a word, proceeded to wipe her father's sweat as she had often done. Mr. Miura held his daughter's hand and looked up at her with unspoken remorse. Joybell smiled and burst into tears. Daddy, oh Daddy. She sat on his lap and hugged him. I'm sorry, Daddy. Mr. Miura patted his daughter. Everything will be all right. He embraced her, feeling much relieved. Why can't I be like you, Daddy? You're always so wise and understanding. Just be yourself. You'll know what you need to know when the time is right. We may not be all alike, but we're endowed with the capacity for understanding. All we need to do is open our hearts and mind and take into consideration every avenue, every possibility. But why can't I see your point? Why do I feel so bad? Oh, I hate myself for being so thoughtless and unreasonable. In time, you'll acquire the wisdom to understand both the complexities and even the simplicities of life. It's all part of growing up. When I was your age, I used to blurt out whatever came to mind without thinking about its consequences. How I wish you would not have this misunderstanding. It breaks my heart. How I wish everything would just be fine. As long as we live, there could be problems and heartaches, small ones, big ones, but solutions are always available if we are willing to seek this. We just have to choose what works. You see, it's not the number of times we fail, but how we surmount this that matters. But whatever the outcome, treat yourself with kindness for trying, and face life again with courage and faith. We have to learn and profit from our every encounter and be forgiving to ourselves. It is so good to hear that, Daddy. Come on, wipe your cheeks, he cajoled Joybell, both of them smiling now. Joybell wiped her tears with the back of her palm. Lota, who had all his time, this time began watching them from a discreet distance, felt relieved of the pain that had burdened her. He had proven once more that nothing could break that intangible tie which bound them to each other. And so at dinner time, the same old happy and intimate atmosphere prevailed. They took their supper amidst jokes and lively conversation. The night behind being warm and bright with stars scattered like white sparkling sands all over the sky. The Miuras went out for one of their much welcome night strolls together, a practice they had long been enjoying ever since before the war. Hand in hand, they sauntered along lazily, noticing every flower along the way, grateful for every upright tree, and releasing the sweet scent of the green velvet meadow around them. This particular night, they lingered long on the hill. With childlike enthusiasm, they embarked into a guessing game, figuring out the fast-changing cloud formations, excitedly pointing out every discernible shape. "Look, Daddy, it's a white cross this time," Joybill jumped up, directing them to the perfectly shaped figure. "And there's another one. Oh, it's coming close to the first cross. And there's a smaller one. How perfectly formed." "Just like us on this hill," Mr. Miura remarked in a light tone. Yet there was wistfulness in his voice. "Doesn't that one look like an angel?" Lota wished they did not linger on those crosses and was grateful for this new cloud formation. What she did not say was that those fast-changing cloud formations gave her a sudden chill creeping up her spine. And they found many other figures. They all enjoyed it immediately, surprised at how enchanting and, yes, mystical cloud formations could be if one just took the time and concentrated on them. As they walked home, Lota obliged to Joybill's request and sang a simple but melancholy Filipino lullaby. "I'll never forget that song, Mommy. That song is so you." She praised her mother after she hit the last note. It was the song that Lota used to sing to her to lull her to sleep when she was a small child. And every time Joybill had that whim of wanting to enjoy a little bit more of childhood, she always asked for that song. It was such a touchingly beautiful and memorable evening in their lives that they all knew it would stay part of them, always to be cherished and remembered. That's all for today, to be continued on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I hope you will inspire me with a like, share, and subscribe.